Well guys, as you can tell by the title of this video, my dad totaled the 750 Chopper. Yeah, the one we just got finished rebuilding, that rode great, totaled it. I'm thankful that he's alive, that he's well. Well, not really well, but he's alive. So let's walk around the bike. It's absolutely totaled. I know you say, well, it don't look that bad. It is. Let me explain to you what happened. So you might be wondering what happened. Well, we had a group ride Saturday. Today's Monday. Left here out of Hartsville. There was 1, 2, 3, there were 4 of us. Fueled up here locally and decided we were going to take a ride on the back roads up to Center Hill Down. So we rode about 40 minutes till we got into a town called Gornsville. And there's a pilot truck stop there. So I told Dad before we left the shop, hey, let's stop in Gornsville and let's fill up your bike because, you know, we don't know the mileage really yet of that little tank. I think it's a 2-gallon tank. And this is the last stop, the last place to get gas until we make a big loop around to the dam and then back. We'll stop back here again. So let's go ahead and top you off. I decided to bring the new GoPro along that a subscriber sent to me. And I also have the motorcycle mount that our Canadian friend gave me. It's a GoPro mount, it's a bar mount. It worked great. Now that my brake line was right in the center of the screen, so I'm going to have to do something else, adjust that. But when we took off at the gas station, we made a right turn, come to an intersection, went straight through that. I was in the lead with the GoPro and I had just turned my GoPro on. My father was behind me on the chopper, then my son-in-law, and then a good friend from church, Bubba, on his trike in the very back. And my son-in-law noticed something on my dad's bike and ran up there and tried to stop him. But my dad didn't hear him. So the first kind of country road, so the first kind of curve we get to is a curve to the left. I notice in my mirror, I always try to kind of check on everybody because, you know, I drive a 1950 Panhead, so my speedometer is not what we call accurate. I keep looking in my mirror so I know when to slow down or speed up and when everybody's kind of together. I noticed they weren't coming around the curve. So I kind of slowed down and then here comes Bubba on his trike. He said, hey, your dad's wrecked. So I turn around and come back up to where my dad wrecked. So I'll show you the video of that now and then explain to you what my son-in-law saw and tried to stop him but couldn't get to him in time. All right, folks, we're out on the ride. Thought y'all might like to come along with us on our Saturday ride. We've got my good friend from church, Bubba. It's on this trike, beautiful bike. Son-in-law's on my dad's Dyna, and my dad's on his Chopper, 750. And I'm on Lucy. So we're going to head up to the Center Hill Dam. Thought y'all might like to come along. So I know you can't really tell what's going on from there. That's me coming back to what had happened. And what my son-in-law saw was that my father forgot to put his kickstand up. And on that chopper, the kickstand, when you put it down, kind of goes forward, and that's kind of what locks the kickstand in. So if somebody comes up while the bike's on the side, on the kickstand, and they kind of lean on it, it doesn't, you know, go forward and the bike fall. So when my dad went to go left, he said it wouldn't turn. Well, that's because the kickstand was dragging and wouldn't let him lean left. And so he locked both brakes up, and there's a big, huge skid mark, and he went off into the ditch on the right-hand side of the road. And in that ditch was several boulders, just big boulders, rock boulders, all throughout the ditch for water drainage. And he rode that thing. I bet he looked like he was on a bucking bull. He rode that thing all the way until he hit a culvert on the front end of his bike. That threw him off the bike and out onto the road. I can't show the pictures of the damage to his body. They're pretty gross. It peeled the skin around this finger, his pointer finger on the left hand, all the way almost off the bone. They were able to put the skin and meat back on and then stitch all the way around it, 10 stitches here. This had 4 stitches. He had bruises and cuts. Here he had road rash on his left knee, all up his side. He had road rash on his shoulder. The way that he went off the bike in the air, the first thing to hit the pavement was his head. And it hit on the left side of his helmet and knocked him out. So when my son-in-law got to him, he was like, literally snoring. He was out. When I came back to the scene, which you'll see in the video, he was already setting up. And we got there, and thank goodness somebody that stopped called the paramedics, and all those guys were great. They got there within 5 minutes. Paramedics, the local police, county police, the trooper came later, all super nice folks. But he just kept saying, I'm fine, I'm all right, I'm all right. And when the paramedics come, they started trying to talk to him. And my dad was out of it. He didn't know. All he knew was his name and what year he was born. He didn't know what year it was. He didn't know, where he was. He didn't know what happened. He didn't know who the president was. Those things that the paramedics were just asking him. And so I knew immediately something was wrong. He had a very severe concussion. So he asked me probably, 20 times within those 5 minutes, Kevin, what happened? How did I get off in the ditch? I kept saying, Dad, you left your kickstand down. And when you went to lean, it threw you over. Over and over and over, I had to repeat that. So I knew something was wrong. So the paramedics picked up on that, and they decided to take him to a bigger hospital, more closer to Nashville. So my son came with my motorcycle trailer. We loaded his bike up. I had a family member go be with my dad at the hospital because he was just so out of it. And I'm like, they're going to ask him all these questions he's not going to know the answer to. So then we got his bike back here in the shop, and me and my wife went up there, and I've been with my dad ever since. He got released from the hospital last night, and I drove him back home. He has help there at home, but they kept him. They did a CAT scan, and they saw a fracture in his neck, right at the top of his neck, a C2, I believe. So they wanted to keep him and do more tests, and did an MRI, and it just confirmed there was a fracture. The doctor told us the way the fracture was, he had 3 options. They could do a surgery where they'd run a screw from the front, screw his neck, and then he has full mobility that way. Second option was running 2 screws in the back, but he would lose about 30% of his mobility in his neck. The third option was to wear the neck brace and wear that for 12 weeks. So he decided to do that, to wear that for 12 weeks. But that's not going to knock him out of the riding season for this year. While I was in the hospital for hours with him, we were talking. Is the bike savable? I don't know. I think the frame is probably bent the way that when we got it out of the ditch that it looked. It would not shift out of whatever gear he was in. The shifter rod is bent, but I don't think that's the issue. It'll still click, but it won't go into neutral. The motor appears to be okay. It's not leaking any fluids. The tank was leaking even after we shut the fuel off, but I don't know. There's a huge dent in the tank from some part of his body. Knee, a head, a elbow, we don't know. He broke the clutch cable bracket off with his hand. That's probably what cut his hand up. But I do know when they were stitching his hand up, they pulled out several rocks from the road and the gravel in somebody's driveway. I will post pictures of them putting him in the ambulance and pictures of the blood on the road, but the other pictures I probably can't show you. It didn't pop in the tires, miraculously. I don't know about I don't think it bent the rear rim, probably bent the front, twisted the forks, bent the handlebars, probably twisted the frame, broke the clutch, bent the foot pegs, shifters, bent the sissy bar, bent the rear fender, bent the tank. So probably a total loss. He loved the bike, loved it. And when he was behind me, man, he'd rev it, it sounded like a Ferrari behind me. Just has a beautiful, unique sound. So maybe we can save it. I don't know. We're going to definitely have to strip it down, shoot a laser down the center, see how twisted things are, do some measurements. I haven't even looked over the bike yet, so me and you are going to look over it real good right now for the first time. So be praying for my dad as he heals. He's decided, he's 70 years old now. He's a fit guy, very independent, but he's decided that maybe a trike might be a time for a trike in his life. And our friend Bubba from church that rides with us often, he has a trike, and my dad loves that. So I think he's going to trade his Dyna in and do a trike for it. If the bike is not salvageable, we will be parting it out. Might sell it as a whole, might sell just the motor and the oil tank and seat and things separate. Don't know yet. Don't even know if it's really savable at this point. But let's walk around it and look and, you know, see what we can find out. All right, so here's the bike. Here's the clutch cable that was broke. There's still a little bit of Dad's fluids on there. He just broke it. The whole thing broke off of here. Probably, I don't know if he was let the clutch go and then just held on, and his fingers probably got wrapped up in there. And when he hit, you know, it went that way and peeled off. Really big dent there. I don't know, maybe an elbow, maybe a knee. I don't know. Might could even get that popped out. Don't know. I mean, we were going to paint it this winter anyway because of this right here, but now I see that this right here is wet. And I smell the gas. So the impact must have broken this open wherever it's leaking from. Oh yeah, it's leaking from that right there. I see it getting dry and then getting wet again. So that kind of broke that open. When the bike was kind of in the ditch this way, as you saw in the video, it was leaking down on top of this carburetor. So I don't know if this was leaking. There's still fuel in this line here. I don't know if that was leaking under there or up here, the fittings, but they're dry now. I did turn the fuel off, but it had, you know, usually there's not this much fuel left in here. Pegs on the left side there got bent, and that's a pretty thick bar. You can see how hard he hit. That bent this shifter over here. It bent and put a nick on the pipes where they bottomed out. I would assume that the bottom of the motor was busted, but it didn't. There's no leaks. If you move back here, he hit here on this frame and here on the sissy bar and here on the fender. So it twisted the sissy bar so much that you can see the bend right here, hit right here, bent his plate that was on the sissy bar, bent the fender over, twisted that. This side of the bike kind of come out okay. He really kind of took the brunt of it on that left side. These pipes down here are fine. He was pushing the brake so hard he pulled the brake switch spring off, and now this just flops all the way down, and the spring inside the drum here is broken because it will not. Well, it springs back. I guess he just stretched the cable out. Okay, so that drum brake's probably good. As far as the bars, they are bent. This one is bent in. This one looks normal. So when it hit, it bent this bar in. But, you know, this is bars I just had laying around that we put on there. Now, when you look at the front of the bike, you can see that it looks like these risers bent as well from the force. The wheel looks dead on. I think the problem was in the bars, because when you stood the bike up to do this, now that the bars are bent, you know, you kind of try to get them even, and then it looks way off from the frame. But maybe, I don't know guys, maybe the forks survived. We'll have to run a laser on it to verify, to make absolutely sure. Maybe that survived. Let's go and look up here. You know, there's no fork tube leaks. I mean, these forks, you know, they're pretty stout, but he hit that culvert dead on. And I don't see any real damage here, and it didn't pop the tire, so maybe that tire helped. There's a lot of good about this. Number one, my dad's okay. We'll be okay. It looks like it bent. It hit here. You can see here. And it looks like it bent the bracket for this homemade foot peg out. So I don't think there's any damage to the actual frame or motor itself. You can see he hit here on the pipes, but if you were to wrap these pipes anyway, you would never see that. Or we can just get some new pipes that, you know, wouldn't be that bad. I have not tried to start the bike yet. We'll try to put it in neutral and start it up and see how it runs. The seat survived. It didn't get cut up any. Let's try to get it in neutral. Try to give it a start and see if it runs. It wasn't running when I come up on it, so I don't know if somebody turned it. I don't know if my son-in-law Matt turned it off. Matt, my son-in-law, he rode this bike actually to church the Sunday before we went riding. He said it rode great. We kind of adjusted the clutch a little bit. He said, you know, when you go to get in it, feels like it's kind of slipping. And so I was like, let me see the clutch. And the clutch had a lot of play in it. Reason for that is this is a Harley clutch, because it's 1-inch bars up here and stuff. So they put a Harley clutch on the Honda, and you can't do that, because here is where the clutch cable comes in, and it's right kind of supposed to run under the timing here, housing here. But because they used a Harley clutch cable, you know, Harley clutch cables come out, you know, kind of straight. They just shoved the cable in there, and you can't even thread this in here. So we're going to be replacing this with a Honda clutch cable. No, it is not shifting. Looks like this got bent way back too far. So let's take this linkage off and try to just shift it from here. You know, it's always scary when a rider goes down. It's even scarier when it's your dad, 70-year-old dad. I'm so fortunate when he flew back on the road that there weren't any cars at that moment. No. Okay. We were able to kind of pull the clutch to get it to disengage so we could at least roll it. But the shifter is broke inside. I'll tell you what, let me jack the frame, the rear wheel off. Then we can try to start it in first. If it'll do that, it should have enough juice to do that. Then we can at least see if the motor's going to run. Nothing's leaking from it. I suspect the motor's okay. We're definitely going to have to do something with the shifter here, shifting. It might be savable. It's going to be really hard to start that in gear, but now that it's up, let me hook a jumper up to this, charge that battery, and we'll go from there. So what do you guys think? Savable? What all does that depend on? You know, you tell me. What's savable and what's not. I don't know if it'll whip enough to even start in first gear or whatever gear it's in. I'm sure he wasn't in first. And he was so worried about his bike. My dad, we can replace bikes. All right, let's see what it does now. Well, it sounded like it was trying to. All right, so I got the clutch cable pulled out with a pair of vice grips kind of holding the cable out. Maybe that'll help us. It didn't free it up, but maybe, I don't know, maybe that'll help us a little bit. Let's see now. Okay, that's better. Smelling something burning, but I think it's my clutch cable laying on the pipes up here in the front. But there's a lot of fuel in here. It might have got flooded and they're just sitting in there, but it should have cleared up. We got good oil pressure, really good oil pressure. So that's good. I think the motor is savable. The carbs, we can rebuild those. There's no oil leaking. The bars and risers are bent. Maybe it's just the bar throwing the risers off. I've seen that before where people thought, well, you know, my risers are bent. Well, it was just the bar that was bent and it was making the risers cockeyed. So we can fix that. We will run a laser down the forks, down the frame, but I think this is going to be savable. I did see that it broke the bolt here for the tank holding it on. It's not moving or anything, but it's sheared off. And then of course the shifter. Maybe it's just a gear or a spring or something inside this casing here that's broken. I don't know. And then where the peg bracket got back into here, there's a little bit of abrasion, but no cracks or dents here. So I think that'll be fine as well. So all in all, you know, if insurance was to look at it, they'd total it out. No doubt. But I think it might be savable. My main concern is the frame. Since there's nothing leaking, no big oil leaks, no big holes that I see, even with it running, I would say that the motor's okay. I don't see any damage to the coil wires or the coils themselves. I don't see any damage to the frame in the front. Just this side and this back is really what got it. So I think next year he'll be able to ride this again, or at least sell it and let somebody enjoy it and ride it. So we were going to rebuild this in the winter anyway, and now we're really going to be rebuilding it. I'm just hoping the frame's okay, and everything else is just cosmetic really. The frame and the motor in good shape, we can really fix pretty much about anything else. I would say when his body hit these bars, but they're bent. They're not bent out, they're bent in. So maybe he was just gripping so hard. You know, when you wreck, you get superhuman strength sometimes, and maybe the way he hit, it just bent that bar in. The forks, they don't look that bent, but they might be. We'll have to shoot them with a laser and see. Nothing looks broke on the carbs themselves. Of course, they're kind of tucked in behind the motor. The bike didn't flip. It just hit all those rocks and then an abrupt start or stop. So guys, that's going to do it for this little quick video. I'll go ahead as soon as I edit it and upload it. So it should be up tomorrow, Tuesday. That's just how riding is sometimes. Many things to be thankful for. My dad's still alive. He's still able to walk around, move around. He didn't hit anybody. Could have been very, very deadly very quick. I didn't know what I was going to see when I pulled up on the scene. But when I saw my dad setting up and, you know, moving around, I'm like, okay, he's all right. The bike we can fix. I think we can really save this and fix this. And you know, he might he might want to ditch this front end and go with a Springer or something. So we'll have a chance this winter to strip it all down, fix that shifter. I want to replace the clutch anyway, because even after we adjusted the clutch up here, it didn't help it. So I would assume the clutch pack's kind of wore, where it's got a Harley clutch cable kind of half in it and half not. So we'll look at and fix all of that. You know, I think we'll be all right. So this winter we'll strip it down, we'll fix everything we need to fix, and when it goes back together now, it'll be a whole lot better. And yes, I'm putting a safety switch on that kickstand so the bike won't start with this kickstand down, or a better stand where even it doesn't go out far as much. My dad has a new riding name, kickstand. So be seeing you this Friday. So tell your mama now I said hi.